Alright, so we've gotten our notice and we're gonna go pick up the Turnigy 1/16 Monster Beatle. So the box came pretty well packaged. It wasn't damaged or anything, so Hobbyking did a great job packaging it up. Now let's take it home and open it up. Alright, so now we've got it home. Let's open this thing up. Instead of putting the box on the top, they turned it inside out. Normally it would have been like this. So, a bunch of air on this side. A lot of packaging, so keeps it nice and safe in transit. Comes with a little antenna whip. That's good because I don't have a 2.4 gigahertz system I'm putting into it. Let's see, it comes with the manual. So you're going to want to thread lock all the screws that go into metal, and you're going to want to use very little extra thick CA on screws that go into plastic. So CA for plastic and thread lock for metal. It's got a whole bunch of important points. You're gonna need some batteries, charge your batteries, put the antenna in. It tells you how to set up the radio, if you have one of these radios. Special instructions about batteries using the ESC. That's worth a read because the ESC that comes with it has braking and reverse and forward. It's not just a helicopter ESC, so it's a little more complicated. Gives you all the parts. And there's a spare parts list. There. Same as any other RC manual. Here are the specs on the ESC. Input voltage 6 to 16.8, so it can use a 4S LIPO, because that's exactly what a 4S LIPO goes to. Some people were saying it goes to 16, but this must be an updated form because it's separate from this. So they've updated the ESC. It's got a 2 amp BEC, which is pretty good for one servo. That's usually fine for 4 servos on a T-Rex. Alright. So make sure it's all hooked up like so. Tells you even that it'll go da 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 after you connect the receiver. So there you go. That's enough about the manuals. Let's take a look at the car. Okay, let's take these things out. It's not a bad canopy. People say that it breaks easily, but you're probably not supposed to crash this thing that much. And it comes with this plug. I don't use these, so I'm gonna have to switch it with the Deans, overpriced Deans. This bottom plate is plastic. Not the best plastic. It does twist a little bit, but for the price it's not bad. I'd rather have that as aluminum. Battery tray has 2 little holders on the sides and this thing. I'll give you the dimensions inside that as well. Alright, when you choose a battery, you're going to want it to fit in this thing without any modifications probably. So you need it to be tall enough, wide enough, and long enough to fit perfectly. It should be about 30 millimeters tall or less. If you want to fit it between those 2 plastic things, it needs to be about 27.2 millimeters. Or if you take out the left side, which is okay because there's still a wall there, it can be 32.4 millimeters. Lengthwise, it should be about 104 millimeters. For reference, you can take your DX7's LIPO and if you want to fit something like that in there, you're going to want to unscrew one of these plastic holders. Okay. So if you've removed one of them, you can lay the battery down and it fits about perfectly. So if you can find a battery the size of the DX7 remote or less, then you could actually fit it right in there. See how the pins fit in? Right there. So the DX7 battery fits in quite well if you remove one of the dividers. But they only ask for a 2S, so this is already overloading it. But of course you wouldn't use the transmitter battery in there because it's only good for low drainage. It's like what, 2C or something. And of course you can drill your own holes so that you can move these dividers around. Initially they're there. I need to move it a little wider to fit my bigger battery, so I've drilled 2 holes there. So now that I've moved the battery holders, this 4S that I've got fits perfectly in there. So it doesn't slide up or down or left or right. I'll give you the dimensions of the shaft so you can see if you can buy new wheels from an RC store. So this tire broke free from the rim. It's usually glued on. And you can see there's foam inside instead of just air. Now let's take a look at the tire. You take the lock nut off, and there's a small shaft with a nut on the end that turns. That nut is 8.37 millimeters wide. So if you can find something, if you can find a tire that takes that right there, then you could probably fit it onto this buggy. The shaft is not that much of a concern. You can always drill it so that it can fit this, but that is about 8.8 millimeters long right there, this part. So if you can find a tire that can receive a 8.37 millimeter nut, and the shaft will probably fit. Gear is plastic and sits right there. The gear meshing from factory is not bad either. It's got a little give to it, which is what you want. You don't want it too tight. There's an on-off switch. That's good to have. Car ESCs usually have that. So if you put the switch there, you can drill a couple holes to the right height. I got this set of files from Hobbyking as well, and it's pretty handy for little things like this. So you can, after you've drilled the hole, you can shape it out and make it look better. Alright, now so we've got it so it looks like it's meant to be there. Doesn't look like a hack job. You can just push the switch down with this double-sided sticky tape. You don't want it too far out, otherwise it'll get hit by accident. But now you can easily switch on and off your model. Now let's take a close look at the suspension. It's got 2 oil-filled shocks with adjustable spring tension, and it looks as though you can actually change the clearance by moving this around. Now in addition to moving the towers around on these 6 holes, you can lower the travel by unscrewing that little screw you see right there underneath. It just keeps it from going down. I'll show you here, one sec. Right there. So if you unscrew that, you can have more clearance. And if you want less clearance for road driving, you can just screw it in a little more. Now this silver bar in the middle is a stabilizer bar, like even cars have them, real cars. It's to keep the thing from having too much body tilt when you're turning. Deep down in there you'll see a CV shaft on all four wheels, driving the wheels. We're taking a look at the front, so there's a bunch of steering parts. And these are adjustable, so you can change the tilt of your wheels. But right now it looks like it's adjusted so that it's pretty straight. And when you turn, there's a slight tilt to it too, so that when you're turning left, it picks up one side of the tire, so it's more aggressive when it turns. That's pretty good, instead of turning and then having the tire go like this. You keep it on the ground like that. It's a good feature to have. The front oil-filled shocks, they have a little rubber grommet to keep it from bottoming out. The back ones do not have this. I guess that's part of the design. And the tension on the front springs are a little higher than the tension on the back springs, as you can see. If you want to decrease the tension, you just unscrew that so that you can have a softer ride. But you might bottom out a lot easier. I guess I would rather have the front a little more loose than they've provided. Let's take a look at how well the shock absorbers work. Just drop it a couple times. The front's pretty good, absorbs it. The back is even better. So if you come down from a jump, it absorbs all the shock. Something's bottoming out, I think. If you think you're bottoming out too much, you can tighten these springs, just turn them like that. But if you don't take a lot of jumps, you probably want it to be pretty soft. Because you're only going to be coming down like that. It's going to be good for bumps if you're only driving around. So there's the shocks. Let's take a look at the steering. So that's where it connects to the wheel. Then you've got the adjustment, and here is the 90-degree arm and servo saver. Servo saver actually has an adjustment. Right now it's right in the middle, but you can make it less aggressive or more aggressive. Right now it's actually not very aggressive. See how it's saving the servo? So servo won't get damaged when you're turning, or when you hit a bump and it turns the wheels. So if you want that to be a little tighter, so you have more control, you can just turn this and screw it down like that. Now if you've broken a few servos, it's probably because this is too tight, so you should loosen it up or get a bigger servo. If you'd like to replace the servo needs to match something like this. It needs to be 28 millimeters wide, 29.8 millimeters deep, and about 13.6 millimeters tall. And yeah, if you can find a servo about that big, you can throw it in there. Also, you can move the mounts around. So there's a mount left and right, and those two screws down there are for this mount. So you just drill new holes for a bigger or smaller servo, and you'll be good to go. You just have to place it properly so that the servo arm doesn't need to be adjusted in length too much, but you could also do that too. By using one washer from a 2-liter pop bottle, it's a Sprite bottle, you can fill that gap in, and then you'll take out that play caused by the servo saver. I use the bottom of the bottle, that's the thickest part, so you only have to use one if you use that part. Now let's check the RPM with the 4S, 3S, and 2S battery packs. Let's visit the LIPO artillery. We've got our 4-cell, 1 amp hour, 25 to 35 C discharge. We've got the same cells in a 2-cell, and we have a 3-cell. This one doesn't really fit. You can get it to fit, it'll just be a tight squeeze. So now we're going to test the 4S. We achieve 8,595 RPM. We're going to test the 3S now. This one. We got 5,712. We get 3,476. Now after doing the calculations, we get 97 kilometers per hour for a 4S, 71 kilometers per hour for a 3S, and 46 kilometers per hour for a 2S. So you can see the difference in voltages have a direct relationship to how fast this vehicle can move. So now you've seen what it can do on a 4S, 3S, and 2S. But this thing was only designed to run on a 2S. If you run this ESC, the thing's probably going to overheat and burn itself out, plus the motor. So if you want to run on anything faster, you should upgrade the motor and ESC if you have them laying around. So stick with 2S and have some fun with this thing. It's pretty good on a 2S already. Keep in mind that they've designed this thing to operate on a 2S LIPO or a 7.2 volt nickel metal hydride. So if you're running a 3S or 4S for long term, it'll probably overheat and burn out your motor and ESC. So make sure you just run it on a 2S for now, unless you want to overpower it and maybe cause damage to your ESC and motor. I only run it on 4S for a couple minutes and the motor gets pretty hot already, so I'd recommend just sticking to a 2S if you're not doing speed runs. In terms of thread locking, I would thread lock everything in the drivetrain that goes to metal. So the motor, probably the pinion, the motor mount, these two. So take those out and put thread lock on there, permanent thread lock. These two, and maybe not these two because they go into plastic. They go into the gearbox. Okay, so you've got to thread lock the motor mount. I'll take these ones out. And this is permanent thread lock from Hobbyking. You don't need much, but so you just need a little dab. Go back in. It actually wasn't that tight, so make sure you don't strip it. Don't make it too tight. You strip that sucker, you're done. Done, son. I can feel the motor mount moving after I unscrewed one, so it's not very secure. Actually, there was thread lock on this. You can see a little bit on there, but the first screw I took off, they didn't put any thread lock. So if you, one screw out of two that's thread locked is not good. That motor mount will come loose and you're gonna grind your main gear, or spur gear they call it. There's a plastic piece that goes up and down there. There's two on the top and two on the bottom, and that's into plastic, so you want to use a little CA. And this is all connected to the motor mount, so you're gonna want to CA in thread lock those ones for sure. For the plastic screws, I'm going to use Instaflex. It's a rubberized CA, so it gives a little more than other CA. It's not as hard, so it won't damage the plastic when you try to unscrew it. You don't need much of this, so just put a little bit on the top threads. I'm only going to put probably that much. That might be already too much, but hopefully I don't damage the drivetrain and I don't need to take it out ever again. So make that tight, but not too tight, because you're going into plastic. You'll strip it. Feels like I'm about to strip it already, but I'll leave it like that. These ones are pretty loose. The radio that I'm using is the E-Razor 450's helicopter radio. I've taken the receiver and used 5-minute epoxy to glue it all up, so now that's kind of dirt and dust proof. Put a rubber grommet on this end so you don't damage the cable when you pull on it. Now for the receiver, I'm just going to put it at the front. You want to keep it away from the ESC because it gives off interference. And I'm going to put the antenna through this buggy whip. Alright, let's test power up. So I've got the radio on. I'm going to hold it up in case it just goes crazy. Just double checking gear mesh so it doesn't kill itself. Plug it in and we'll see what happens. So it's on, it's ready. The servo is a little crazy. Servo's pretty quick, and let's see how fast. Wow. Holy crap. Yeah, I would say it's kind of fast. Like, wheel's about to rip off, and I think that's a little too much RPM for it. Let's take it out for a spin, shall we? You'll have to change the centering on the servo. And that's about it. Let's take it out. Okay, is it recording?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so here we are. We're gonna test it out for the first time. You wanna stand over here by the hydrant? Stand over here by the hydrant.
Okay.
Oops! We've got a little too much power with the 4S. Okay. Pretty crazy fast. Okay, you got it?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna come towards us and see how fast I can. Oh! What the hell? It goes pretty damn fast. Okay, that's crazy.
You should let me stand in front of you.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna come flying by. a good break, that's for sure. Okay, ready? Again?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good break. Yeah, let's try again. One more. Uh-oh. Ah! Turn on the radio first. Turn on the buggy. And here we go. Alright, here, let's do one more pass. Alright, let's try to set this to sports mode. Oh, it's already on sports mode. That's good. Alright, I think we might have enough data. Do one more pass. Oh, gotta watch out for this puddle. I don't want to get it too wet. The ESC is not really waterproof. Let's do some 360s. Oh, that's not a 360. Oops. Too much power. Gotta feather it. There we go. And there is the monster Beatle. It's one fast machine, it's tough. If there's a lot of spare parts, that would make it a lot better. Then you won't have to worry about crashing it at 100 kilometers per hour. Thanks for watching, and definitely purchase this if you can get your hands on it. Cheers.